One world currency.
The New World Order.
Those are the roots of trouble.
I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice, tumbling down the rabbit hole. Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life. That there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of election, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. But I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people.
And now, welcome to another episode of Down the Rabbit Hole. Here's your host from federaljack.com. It's Popeye.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to tonight's live edition. It is April 4th, 2013, and you are hearing me live here on Unbound Radio. If you don't know about it, go check it out, unboundradio.com. You can go to my Listen Live page over on federaljack.com. That's my website. If you don't know about that, you should check that out as well. But go over to Federal Jack if you want to interact with the other listeners. There is a chat room at the bottom of the Listen Live page. No trolling will be tolerated. The shiny banhammer will be brought out, and green troll blood will be spilled all over the chat room if you show up. No tolerance for that crap. Anyway, tonight I have a jam-packed broadcast for you, ladies and gentlemen. Right off the bat, I'm going to be playing, not this segment, because the first segment's always a short segment. When we come back from break, I'm going to be getting into an interview. It's two interviews that I did with a hacker friend of mine named Winston Smith, and I put them together, and I want to air them for you. Now, some of the older listeners that have heard my show, my broadcast in the past, might have heard some of this information from Winston, but I know there's a ton of new listeners out there, and what he talks about is, in fact, going on right now, today. And I will explain that, and I will get into that a little bit more as I play the audio from that. But basically, it's about false flag hack attacks. And he's going to explain what to look for, and I'll when it gets into it, I'll explain the subtle differences between what you're seeing now and what Winston warned about. Now, this is a little bit. One of them is from a year ago, and the other one is from about 7 months ago. And he's come on the broadcast multiple times. He'll be coming back on soon. But I spoke to him, and I told him I wanted to re-air these for the newer listeners here on Unbound, because this is really important. And he agrees that it's the information is still pertinent, and he was correct, and it is pointing to exactly what's going on today. So when we get back from break, I'm going to play that, and I'm going to get into a few other things. So don't go anywhere. The breaks are only for a couple minutes. Make sure you tune back in, because if you don't know anything about false flag hack attacks or anything like that, you're about to learn. All right, we're going to break. I'll be back in a few. Stay tuned. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. First long segment of tonight's live edition, and I want to get right into it. I want you to hear the audio from my past interviews with Winston, and he has been on with me multiple times. If you want to hear the full audio from I think he's been on like 3 or 4 times with me. You can go in the archive section over at federaljack.com. I have my last 2 years of archives, pre-Unbound Radio, all there. Go check them out. You can listen to them. The older ones take you to the YouTube archive videos. The newer ones will take you, and the newer ones are down at the bottom. The older ones, it's listed oldest to newest. So the oldest ones starting at the top, scroll down, and the newest ones are at the bottom. And the newest ones actually have a much different look. It opens up a whole separate page on Federal Jack with a player and a link to a bunch of other stuff. So go check it out. In fact, some of the older archives can be downloaded, and you can load them on your MP3 player, cell phone, whatnot, and you can listen to the full archive at your leisure. And I urge you to do so, ladies and gentlemen. If you are a new listener and you are not, if you're not experienced to some of the stuff I talk about, not even just to my broadcast, but if you're not experienced in anything with the New World Order or anything like that, the concept of it, or one world government, whatnot, then I urge you to go check out my older archives, because it's 2 years worth of broadcasts. There's a lot of good interviews in there, a lot of good broadcasts, a ton of information. So go check it out. Anyway, I want to get into this interview with Winston. So here we go.
Last 15 or so years, Hollywood's been pushing certain themes in all hacker-related films. You know, as far back as 15 years ago in the movie Hackers from 1994, you got that. You've got the whole premise of that movie is a white hat security researcher developed a virus that's going to sink some oil tankers as a distraction for stealing some money, and then the attack gets blamed on hackers. Then you have Die Hard 4, which is another movie based on infrastructure attacks, where hackers are attacking the critical infrastructure of the city. Then you have and then you have movies like Takedown, which is the Miramax picture, which is a fictionalized account of Kevin Mitnick, the hacker from California. And that film, Kevin Mitnick hacks into a white hat security researcher, one of the good guys who worked with the government, and found a proof of concept virus that he wrote, which attacks SCADA systems and attacks industrial, nuclear plants, water lines, that type of thing. And these types of themes are prevalent throughout all these movies, and within the last several years, we've seen these actual white hat, government-funded, corporate-developed proof of concepts tools start to come out for infrastructure attacks. On the most extreme examples are the Stuxnet virus and Dooku virus, which have already been proven to come from governments and Israeli government and U.S. government sources. And then you'll have, at every hacker conference that comes out, you'll have these floods of SCADA attack tools developed by not by black hat hackers, but by white hat security professionals who work for vulnerability firms, and they're simply developed and simply interested in getting their name out there and finding the latest vulnerabilities in these SCADA systems, because that's the latest buzzword around the information security system is SCADA protection and critical infrastructure protection. But all this is leading to is there's going to be a large-scale attack on SCADA systems, which will be false flagged by the New World Order, and it will be used, and they will end up doing exactly what the films had said they were going to do, and they're going to end up blaming hackers and throwing the anonymous matter on the attack. So when a large-scale SCADA attack does happen, don't look to basement-dwelling anonymous people. Look towards white hat security professionals and their government contracting firms who are developing it and speaking at conferences about these attacks, because they're the ones who are standing to profit from patching the vulnerabilities and implementing the solutions for it. For a long time, the critical infrastructure aspects of society, like the nuclear power plants and the dams and the sewer pipelines and all that stuff, all those things used to never be internet connected. It's considered crazy to consider making that a public-facing infrastructure. But as everything starts being given IP addresses, and even now washing machines are being given IP addresses, things end up on the internet. And even if a single outside machine can get compromised into this internal network, then it is possible to worm through and get control of it. Especially considering a lot of these SCADA systems are ridiculously simple, using programming languages and architectures from 20 years ago. And the reason is they were never meant to be internet facing, but they are now. And there's going to be an attack on them, and it's going to be backed by the government so that they can use it to continue to implement controls and restrict internet freedoms, get things like SOPA and PIPA and all sorts of other restrictive internet legislations passed under the guise of protecting society from these critical infrastructure attacks by these groups of hackers. People in the hacker community and the information security community in general, they should really just follow the news and follow developments on SCADA vulnerabilities that are being released and discovered, and who's the one discovering them? What are they? What's the purpose of it? A lot of it is just legitimate researchers trying to make a name off of a hot topic, make a name for themselves off finding vulns in a system that's very popular to do right now. They can make a lot of money finding vulnerabilities and then getting contracts for the companies. There's nothing wrong with that. But what is the problem is once those vulnerabilities are indexed and cataloged, the government will pick and choose which ones they want to do. Put together a black ops team to carry it out, and then blame it on a group like Anonymous.
Yeah, and then some 14 or 15-year-old kid will be the patsy.
The Bin Laden of the internet.
Yeah, and they'll make them go down in history as the bad guy when in reality it's not. It's unbelievable what's going on. 10 years ago, if you had told me this kind of stuff was going to happen, I would tell you that you were, you've watched too many. You watched The Matrix one too many times, perhaps.
Yeah, it's the same thing like with the Lone Gunman TV show regarding 9/11. There are all sorts of Hollywood movies.
Predictive programming is what you're referring to. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. It's they'll have topics in films and mainstream media, and mainstream film movies and TV shows about things like the Twin Towers getting blown up or planes getting hijacked and crashed into them years before 9/11. And it's so basically they're all they're going off these war game scenarios that have been developed, and SCADA attacks are one of the most popular war game scenarios right now for the federal government.
Those in the hacker community that hear this live broadcast later on, you pull the archive or you hear it on YouTube, guys, whatever senses you use to work and do your math. By the way, I'm going to pause it for a second. You're going to hear once in a while in the interview, you'll hear like bumper music fade in and out. That's because this is from another broadcast, obviously. And that was the bumper music I was using at the time. So if you hear bumper music fade in and out, unless you hear me cut in and say, hey, we're going to break, don't worry, we're not going to break. It's just a little bit of background audio, but it'll disappear fast. So back to the interview. Magic. Keep an eye out on what's going on, because you guys will be what saves the day. It's going to be you people that help save the internet. Okay? So keep your eyes open. Give out your warning one more time, just in case.
Yeah, the main warning is to keep an eye out on SCADA system vulnerability publications. Keep an eye on who's releasing them, what type of vulnerabilities there are, what type of systems there are. And just and keep an eye out for government war game scenarios. They always advertise these types of scenarios when they're going to make them, when they're going to make a big thing of it. A lot of it goes unadvertised. And if you're working within government, keep an eye out for those red team, blue team type exercises. And eventually one of those might one of those contractors that are being brought in might have an agreement with some darker forces to be able to marshal some stuff in. So everyone has to be on their top diligence, not really looking towards the inside, looking at the contractors and the intelligence connections of those involved in your research.
Now, I'm going to pause it right there for a second. That was the clips from the first one of the first broadcasts that him and I had done about the false flag hack attacks. That was about a year ago. And then flash forward about 5-6 months later, he came back on. He came on a few times in between them, but he came on again with another warning about false flag hack attacks and SCADA systems attacks. Apparently now, I've talked about this before I came over here to Unbound, but for the newer listeners to the broadcast, I'll reiterate this. Now they're not. It looks like they're not doing SCADA system attacks. It looks like they're actually just going to go with the old school, simple virtual sit-in, the DDoS attack. Now that has a way of, first of all, it's simple, but it also has a way of demonizing the DDoS attack itself, which is what I think that is one of the primary things behind it, because that seems to be one of the things that hackers do the most. They'll DDoS attack a website, which is nothing more than, again, like I said, it's a virtual sit-in. You're not harming the site. It's just people can't get to it. You're stopping the traffic from getting there. The only person that's being really harmed, I guess, in any way, and they're not really being harmed, it's just their visitors are not being able to get there. So I guess if that's their business, then they can get harmed financially somewhat. But a DDoS attack is nothing more than, that. It's not, oh my God, all my personal information is out. That's a different type of thing. And again, this legislation isn't going to stop human behavior. What legislation would that be? Well, I know, what is it, CISPA, I think it was? Not SOPA. I know both of them existed, but I think it's CISPA Part 2 is the one that they're trying to bring back now because of false flag hack attacks. And a lot of it are these DDoS attacks, which Winston talked about. You heard him talk about SCADA systems and SCADA vulnerabilities, which is another thing you have to be on the lookout for. One also makes me wonder if they would do the DDoS attacks as a way to get even the smart people in the hacker community to look in one direction, and then maybe they do hit with a SCADA vulnerability. Never know. These people are very slick. Anyway, I'm going to get back into this audio. We got about 2 minutes before we go to break, so I want to play a little bit more, and then we'll pick it up on the other side of the break. Here we go. This is the beginning of the second time he was on, where he gets into the possibilities of what could happen. And remember, this was, again, 6 months in between. It's about 5-6 months in between. You warned about the SCADA system attacks that they would launch. When I say they, I mean this, whatever you want to call them, this elitist group that control things. They would either have contractors do it or the government itself, an agency in the government itself do it, and then they could blame Anonymous or they could blame, a foreign country, whatever. In this case, a couple months ago, it looked like they would have blamed Anonymous. Now it looks like they're aiming that weapon of mass deception at Iran. And you see them talking about how, Iran could, hack our infrastructure and take down power stations and everything else. So you know better than me about infrastructure and how that's such crap. So go ahead, I'll give you the floor. Explain to the listeners how that whole thing with the attacking Iran thing is crap, and go ahead and you can gloat if you want that you called it and said that they were going to try this.
They're basically following the playbook that they've laid out that we discussed on the last couple times I was on. They're gearing up to do a false flag attack against the SCADA systems in the United States. And for new listeners, SCADA systems are the automated controllers that are in charge of things like the water system and nuclear power plants, electrical grid, the critical infrastructure. And a lot of the technology is 20, 30 years old, and shouldn't be put on the internet, but a lot of it, a lot of stuff that they have been updated has been put online.
All right, I'm going to pause it right there because we're coming up to the break. But on the other side, I'll rewind it about a minute so it'll pick up where he explains what SCADA systems are again for the listener. So don't go anywhere. More with Winston Smith on false flag hack attacks when we get back in a few minutes. We are back, ladies and gentlemen, and I want to get right back into it with my interview with hacker Winston Smith. Now, I rewound it where he starts to talk about the SCADA system attacks again. And remember, this is the second piece that I had cut together from two separate interviews for you. And as you'll see, as I continue on here, I will continue to point out how it is completely relevant to what we're talking about today, because a year later, he's right on the money. Now, as I said, the SCADA system attacks seem to have been kind of like replaced with this urge to do DDoS attacks, regular simple DDoS attacks. A lot of that, I would say multiple reasons. One of the reasons would be you could demonize Anonymous. Okay, how would you demonize Anonymous with this? Well, first of all, and you'll hear Winston talk about this later on about another thing, another aspect of how they're trying to program people about Anonymous, because most people don't even know who Anonymous is. And Winston and I will get into that. You'll hear that. But, that seems to be like the hacktivists' tool, right? A DDoS attack, or the Anonymous, they'll do a DDoS attack, right? Well, the way to demonize a virtual sit-in, right, is something that, again, is not damaging physically to the website or the individual, right? It's just a DDoS attack. We've had it at Federal Jack before back in the past. So it's, again, a lot of people with websites have gone through it. So they're trying to demonize this form of, internet hacktivism, right? Or internet protesting, if you will. And they're trying to turn it into like, oh my God, it's terrorism. And a lot of these legislators, they hear DDoS attack. They're like, oh my God, they could launch off nukes with a DDoS attack, right? I mean, they attacked CIA.gov, Popeye. CIA.gov, after all of our secrets are on CIA.gov. No, our secrets are not on CIA.gov. And furthermore, if our secrets are on CIA.gov, ladies and gentlemen, then perhaps the people who are running CIA.gov should be fired, because there shouldn't be any state secrets on a website like that that's open to the general public. Well, the government's catching up with technology, Popeye. Horse crap. Horse crap. The government is just catching up with technology. They've had closed systems for longer than before I was in the military. This is 10 years ago when I was in, and they had closed systems, and that stuff was old school by the time I was in. They'd already had it. Don't act like the internet is new to these, they're bumbling buffoons. Come on, Popeye, our government, they don't do anything right. No, they play that game. Now, of course, Congress and the morons in there, they might not know anything about the internet, but the people in the government that actually take care of security are not the same bumbling morons that they have, quote-unquote, representing us. Because they really don't represent us. They're really more like non-representing representatives. But I digress. These people don't know their rear end from a hole in the ground. They really don't. Dianne Feinstein thinks PTSD is a new thing from the Iraq War. Really, Dianne? Thank you. Thank you, Dianne. Just go, pack your stuff. You're fired. And so are the rest of you. They don't have any idea about the internet. So they hear DDoS attack. Oh my God, it's a scary thing, the internet. How many people out there use the internet to just do nothing more than pay bills, go to their bank, maybe surf YouTube, a couple different websites here and there? A lot of people don't use the internet to its fullest potential. They spend more time researching kitten videos than they do looking up maybe books they should read, or at least somewhat investigating anything, right? Or even listening to a radio broadcast or a podcast or whatever. They're not really using the internet like they should. And now that people are starting to wake up and stop watching the kitten videos, and they're actually starting to pay attention to what's going on, well, you have people like Jay Rockefeller. Perhaps the internet never should have existed. And then comments like that, backed up with actions where they have hackers who work for the government, don't think they don't, that false flag things, and then they'll turn around and go, you see, now we need SOPA and CISPA 2 and CISPA Part 3 and 4 and 5. You watch. When we come back, because we're coming to break in a few seconds here, but when we come back from break, I'm gonna continue with the interview with Winston. Listen to what he has to say. You'll see a lot of it is coming true today. We get into Russia and China. And at the time, they weren't hacking us, quote-unquote hacking us yet. We'll see. Stay tuned. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get right back into it. We have a little bit of a longer segment here, so I want to get as much audio as I can in here. And picking up where we left off, you're going to hear Winston start to talk about SCADA attacks, and he's going to give a quick explanation of what a SCADA attack is. Again, here we go.
Basically, they're basically following the playbook that they've laid out that we discussed on the last couple times I was on. They're gearing up to do a false flag attack against the SCADA systems in the United States. And for new listeners, SCADA systems are the automated controllers that are in charge of things like the water system, nuclear power plants, electrical grids, the critical infrastructure. And a lot of the technology is 20, 30 years old, and shouldn't be put on the internet. But a lot of it, a lot of stuff that they have been updated has been put online. Some of the attacks that are coming through that are being developed now against these old systems in order to attack critical infrastructure. And the only real motivation that a hacker would want to take over these systems for is to do some kind of damage to the infrastructure. And the only people who would really benefit from that are either foreign countries that are seeking to attack, or from the government itself that's seeking to do some kind of false flag attack. And that seems to be where they're going. We using groups like Anonymous as a proxy or as a front. They're seeking to do attacks on the United States and blame it on countries like Iran. And you can see in the recent news reports that that's exactly where they're heading. They can dovetail Anonymous into the mix by saying Anonymous was assisting topple regimes during the Arab Spring and all that stuff. And those are the Anonymous' participation in the Arab Spring Revolution has been confirmed. A State Department false flag operation. There are chat logs on Pastebin that reveal basically admissions of such, and that seems to be where it's heading now. And what you can start to see in mainstream news reports that the government is warning of attacks against critical infrastructure, specifically on the SCADA systems from rogue enemies such as Iran, or to think that terrorist groups like Al Qaeda are seeking to attack critical infrastructure by attacking our SCADA systems. And that basically just means they're starting to war game these scenarios and to develop attacks themselves. And then once they will pull something major, they're going to use that to pass legislation and restrict the internet even further. It seems like the one major thing they need to get these restrictive legislations passed is some kind of internet, like some kind of catalyst online that will get people behind it, just like the Project for New American Century said they need a new Pearl Harbor in order to go into the Middle East, and they engineered 9/11 in order to pass this, but they're going to need some kind of internet Pearl Harbor, and they're working on doing that with the SCADA attacks.
And it looks like they're going to try to pinpoint it on Iran so they could get a 1-2 punch. That would, knowing them, because they never do things, on just to benefit on one level. If anybody wonders why they would blame Iran, well, it's a 1-2 punch. One, they can bring in this legislation to quote unquote protect the internet, because it's always about our protection. And
right,
they can declare war on Iran.
An active war.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'd be able to dub this cyber offensive as an act of war.
The Pentagon already said they would react to a cyber attack with real bombs.
That's where they're going with it, and it's becoming more and more apparent as time goes on through mainstream media press releases, because there's more and more coverage on things like scary Arab countries, scary Persian countries attacking our critical infrastructure using SCADA vulnerabilities and things like Anonymous. Working to either topple or prop up regimes in the area when it's all just being puppeted from a blue State Department. What
do you guys, the hacker community, think about all this? What's the chatter?
Among the right, among the people who know what's going on and are informed about the New World Order and the big picture, the chatter is that it's pretty much. Everyone pretty much agrees that this is where they're going with it, and everyone's kind of has their eyes open for it.
Now, next, I'm going to stop here for a second. Next, you're going to hear him and I get into. There's a few other things we talk about in related to the false flag hack attacks, but he wanted to cover at the time Call of Duty 3 or 50 or 97, whatever number they're on now. The newest, I think it was the Special Ops 2, Part 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, that came out. And the premise of it is that the drones drones get hacked by hackers, and hackers start taking over everything because we already have robotic warfare, and then the hackers take over the robots, and oh my God, what happens, and blah, blah, blah. We need this kind of legislation to prevent this ahead of time, and oh my God, scary, scary, scary. And a lot of predictive programming, and at the time, Winston had wanted to get into it because he thought it was really important. And at the time when it first came out, it was all over the internet, and there were a lot of people in Anonymous that were pissed off because you'll see that Anonymous gets used in the thing as a scapegoat. You know, they're called terrorists. A lot of predictive programming and just programming in general going on into the brain with the commercial and the video game. But I want you to hear what Winston has to say about it. So here you go. Kind of frame it for the listeners a little bit, and kind of give them, you know, in like 30 seconds, tell them what it's about, and then I'll play the audio so they can get an idea.
So the new Call of Duty video game being released by Activision has a trailer that's been released onto YouTube, and the trailer stars Oliver North, as well as a couple game developers and a Special Forces major. And they're discussing the Call of Duty Black Ops 2 game that's about to be released, specifically Chapter 4 of the game, where it's called The Enemy. The chapter of that game is entitled The Enemy Has the Keys. And the trailer of the game features Oliver North discussing at length his nightmare scenario of a group of hackers being able to commandeer and take over the command and control center for drones, and being able to use the drones against American troops and civilian populations. And they say things like, if you can hack a bank, you can hack a drone. And as they're saying these things, they're showing images of Guy Fawkes masks and anonymous imagery and icons, using indicating that is where Anonymous is going to be going with their next attacks. And there's been an outcry from Anonymous against Activision, and they're getting attacks against Activision now because of the light that they're portraying them, and that's where that's going. So go ahead and play the audio of Oliver North giving the rundown. And, of course, everyone knows Oliver North is the coke dealer from the Iran-Contra scandal.
You want to know what the war of the future is going to look like? I don't think the average American grasps how violent war is about to become.
The next few years are going to
They show a rail gun.
see a wide array of technology that allows you to blow things up.
P.W. Singer, quote-unquote future war expert and author, Wired for War. He's been featured on the History Channel show about, I can't remember, I think it's called, That's Incredible or That's Impossible or something. It only ran for one season and they axed it, but interesting that he's in this. And it's all, I see what you mean, Winston, dramatic lighting effects and everything else. Ugh, mind control.
To kill in a way we've never seen before in history. A lot of these will sound like things out of science fiction. Things like directed energy, which is basically lasers made real.
Oh, directed energy weapons. Like scalar technology too? Oh, like HARP.
Exoskeletons. Camouflage thought of an entirely new way. They're getting smarter. The weapon itself is becoming more independent. What happens next?
There's going to come a time when this technology is going to catch up with us. I have a nightmare scenario that a hacker breaks into our system that controls satellites, UAVs, even the launch of missiles. Consider what it would be like to have friendly fire from U.S. weapons overhead.
That was complete predictive programming, by the way.
The disconnect between how fast
I'll explain that in a minute.
technology is coming and our reaction time, the distance between those two is growing. Some of the most advanced technologies are not just going to be in the hands of the big boys anymore. What if terrorists could get their hands on this?
There is no longer a defined battle space. The enemy could be anywhere, and it could be anyone. I don't worry about a guy that wants to hijack a plane.
Right at the end, it could be anyone, and it flashes to that picture of from Anonymous they use in their videos where it's the Anonymous mask, and the person, whoever is wearing the mask, is wearing a hoodie, and it hesitates on that picture for a second as it says anyone, and then for a couple seconds afterwards. That is complete predictive programming. And what I said about him going, imagine drones, friendly fire here inside the United States. Yeah, that's them letting you know that they are going to use this technology against us. 30,000 drones in the next 5 years in the skies. Okay? Yeah, that's awesome. What say you, Winston?
Yeah, it's another example of how they're just flaunting it in everyone's face and preparing people so that once it does go down, nobody's surprised. Because I think one of the things that we explained earlier when one of the main reasons they haven't pulled off a big SCADA attack is because the average American will be like, well, what's an anonymous? What is this? You know, they know what hackers are, but not everybody knows what anonymous is, and putting it in things like video games that everyone's kid plays, that's a way to force it into the mainstream culture even more than it is, because the mainstream media coverage hasn't been enough. So now they need to iconify things into the public consciousness, and by putting it into blockbuster video games that everyone's going to be playing and everyone's going to be buying for Christmas gifts and giving to their kids. That's going to instill the right mindset for people, so that once they do pull the big attack, everyone was ready for it and was expecting it and will follow the leader from there on out.
Yeah, and you'll hear people say, "Oh my God, it's like a video game."
It's just like a video game, yeah. Just like 9/11 was just like a Hollywood movie.
You know, it's pretty hard for a 6'6" Arab on dialysis in a cave to pull that off by himself with his laptop and his satellite phone, but apparently he did.
Yeah, just like it's going to be pretty hard for a bunch of 14-year-old kids sitting in college dorms to do what they're alleging is going to be done with anonymous.
Yeah, and some poor super smart kid over at MIT or something will end up taking the fall, and they'll say, "Oh, he was sympathetic to Iran," and then they'll tie it to Iran and 9/11, and the next thing you know, we'll be carpet bombing Tehran.
Yeah, and the proxy servers that hackers are bouncing out of. That's another thing.
Yeah, that'll be in Russia, so we'll have to bomb Russia over that.
Yeah. So like and that's a serious consideration though. People are asking like, oh, well, how do you stop hack attacks? You know, hackers are using proxies and so on and so forth, and bulletproof servers, and the ISPs that are protected by corrupt governments. So how do we deal with that? And the military response is, well, you find out the location of the data center and you bomb it.
Yeah, and as we all know, a lot of these proxy servers are in Russia, so that would just be another thing that they could use to start World War III right there. Yeah, Russia, we had to bomb your stuff because terrorists were, and
China as well.
Yeah, and by the way, you do realize that Russia just told NATO that they would preemptively strike their missile defense shield, because the mainstream media is constantly going to blame Anonymous as this horrible, horrific entity that goes around doing bad things. Like, I laugh when they freak out. The CIA's website was taken down. Yeah, due to a DDoS attack. The CIA's website, CIA.gov. Do you really think they have national security secrets on CIA.gov? All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to pause it right there, but that is a good question to ponder while we go to break. Do you really think they have any pertinent national security secrets on CIA.gov? And if they do, should the person who's in charge of that still have his job? Right? Just saying. Just saying. Going to break. We'll be right back. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to finish playing the audio here from my last couple interviews with Winston Smith. Again, I will continue to point out. I'll probably have to, in fact, I will have to play it into a little bit into the second hour, because I'm not going to have enough time to finish it up. There'll be a few minutes that'll get cut off, and it's important that you hear everything. So let me jam what I can in here, and I'll try to refrain from stopping and pointing things out. But it's important to do that because, again, it shows how this stuff, even though Winston and I talk about this over the past year, and some of these, one of the interviews is almost the first piece of audio you guys heard was from last year, a year ago. And then the other one was from about 7 months ago, 6-7 months ago. It's important to hear it because now you're going to be able to see that, look, he said this and look what's happening. They just chose DDoS attacks over SCADA attacks. But again, as I said earlier, it makes me wonder if they're doing the DDoS attack as a diversionary tactic. They can blame Anonymous and stuff for that, or hackers or whoever, right? They can just, the word hacker is kind of like terrorist, and it's just a label, right? They can throw it out there and be like, oh my God, scary hacker in your underwear drawer right next to Bin Laden. Instead of Al-Qaeda, you'll have Al-Hacker. It's just ridiculous. All right, let me play as much audio as I can here in this last segment, and then we'll finish it off in the second hour. And then I want to get into the Arkansas oil spill. That's right. Many people are going, the what? Yeah, okay. You'll find out. Mainstream media is constantly going to blame Anonymous as this horrible, horrific entity that goes around doing bad things. Like, I laugh when they freak out. The CIA's website was taken down. Yeah, due to a DDoS attack. The CIA's website, CIA.gov. Do you really think they have national security secrets on CIA.gov? If you do, you need to stop drinking the Kool-Aid right now, because it has completely affected you. 150%. There is nothing of value on CIA.gov. Okay? Nothing. It's a bigger tragedy if the E! Entertainment News Network got taken down due to a DDoS attack. And that's how useless CIA.gov is when it comes to national security issues. Same thing with FBI.gov. Those are just informational sites. And they play this up so that Anonymous looks like, some boogeyman, which, like Winston said, they'll just use to blame.
There's also a lot of integration with Anonymous and the U.S. State Department. It's not really officially admitted, but when there are a bunch of chat logs on Pastebin from the AnonOps IRC network that discuss different informant groups like Backtrace Security and a few others and there's discussions between what appear to be FBI agents and State Department officials discussing networks of informants on Anonymous, and they're aside from those campaigns, a lot of the campaigns that they're coming out with are pretty much just fakes being put out by these provocateurs. Like they recently had Operation Global Blackout, which was supposedly going to attack the DNS servers of the internet, and that turned to be absolutely nothing.
So who's left doing all these AnonOps then? You say half of that is fake, and then but I know AnonOps itself that's the real board, right? The message board.
Right. But anyone can join. So like anyone can sign on to there and start a campaign up. And a lot of the most recent campaigns that have been getting a lot of press attention have been fakes. Some of the real stuff that's been going on, you have the Russian anonymous hacking groups. They're starting to target Russian government websites and Vladimir Putin. And I don't know if those are actual Russian who are members of Anonymous. The media is saying that they're Russian activists, but Russian hackers don't usually attack Russian websites. It's kind of just part of their culture that they don't do that. They usually only attack foreign websites, a lot like Chinese hackers. So it's most likely Anons who are either sympathetic towards the Russian people, or this is another State Department false flag where they're going after Russian intelligence services and branding it as anonymous. And that sounds more like it. So that seems to be going on there.
And that happens a lot, right? Where the State Department's going, doing these false flag attacks, and it's really the State Department doing it.
Yeah, it happened all through the Arab Spring, and now if you go to Google News right now and type anonymous hacker, the top two stories are the quote unquote Russian anonymous groups targeting Russian government websites.
I'm going to pause it right there. We have about 2 minutes left, but the end of the hour is coming up on us rapidly. And when you heard him say if you go search Google right now, obviously that's from about like 6-7 months ago, so those probably won't be the two top stories up there anymore. But just letting you know. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will finish this up, and then I want to get into the Arkansas oil spill. coming in on the other side of the break. So stay tuned. We will be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with hour number 2 here on tonight's live edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. I am your host, Popeye, from FederalJack.com. And in this first quick, short segment, I want to try to jam in the last 2 minutes of audio here that I've been playing from the first hour with my friend hacker Winston Smith on false flag hack attacks.
On the surface, looks very much like a false flag from our side, because Russian hackers do not attack Russian websites. That's why they're able to operate the way they operate, because they know it's a hands-off deal. They won't get bothered if they follow the rules. And the second link is a hacker from Anonymous is claiming to have leaked the VMware ESX hypervisor source code, which is a virtualization engine, and the source code for it was obtained off a Chinese military contractor's computer, because that's another campaign that Anonymous has been going on the last few weeks. A guy named Hardcore Charlie has been attacking Chinese military contractors and leaking all their passwords and data. And again, who benefits from attacking Chinese servers? And Anonymous is going after attacking Arab governments, Persian governments, Russian governments, and Chinese governments. This does not really sound like the Anonymous of yore. This sounds like an arm of the State Department, and that's where all their campaigns are going. Especially since the original players are all dodging indictments right now. So guess who's running the servers?
And that's probably how they got in, was through catching these guys and then exploiting them. Because if these guys are doing plea bargains, I'm sure part of the plea bargain was to open their mouth and tell them something.
Oh, yeah. That's usually, and there's an entire network of informants and snitches within the Anonymous and within the hacking community, and just like there's different niches within the hacking community. You've got the people who are into wireless hacking, you've got the people who are into web application hacking, you've got the people who are into hardware hacking, you've got the people who are into snitching and social engineering, and they usually work with they're either direct FBI informants or they're third party informants. The actual FBI agency parlance form is hip pockets, where they'll have one paid informant, and that informant will have some sources that they'll relay the information to their associate from. And there's entire networks of there's entire groups of hackers and snitches that operate like that, and they're paid for it, and they go to DEF CON, they go to all the other hacker conferences, and they're all scumbags, and they have a very, very heavy presence on AnonOps.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. So beware of the false flag hack attacks. Beware of Anonymous being blamed for things that they're not doing. That seems to be their favorite thing. Oh, Anonymous did this. Anonymous did that. It's Anonymous. It's Anonymous. It's Anonymous. It's Anonymous. Well, maybe it's not Anonymous. Maybe it's these governments. Maybe it's the State Department. It's not like false flag hack attacks, false flag attacks, false flag events aren't in their playbook, right? So we should really take a look at this and keep our eyes open. Those in the hacking community, those out there know what you're doing, programmers and stuff. I said it before, I'll say it again. You're the ones that are going to be able to save us, because not all of us know about this, but you guys do. Keep your eyes open. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Okay, in hour 2, I want to get into the Arkansas oil spill. I heard Joe mention it earlier when he was promoting my show. And John King was like, "What are you talking about, Joe? There's an oil spill in Arkansas," and he was serious. It wasn't like played up for radio. It was, I could tell the difference when John's serious and when he's messing around. He really didn't know there was an oil spill. It doesn't surprise me, because there's really no media coverage of it. Wonder why that is. Well, the FAA made a no-fly zone around the oil spill. I guess they don't want any of those pesky, ugly aerial photographs of what it looks like from the sky, the damage, when you get a chance to step back and look. They were really damaging to BP, so I guess Exxon Mobil, their attorneys put the nix on that real quick, huh? It must be nice that the government works for us and to protect us, right? Sure. Keep believing that. Unbelievable. In case you don't know what's going on, there's a pipeline that runs through Arkansas, an oil pipeline, which apparently the residents of this area didn't even know existed. That's even scarier. That they had no clue that this thing was running through their backyard. Can you imagine that? But who would have the power to do that? Officials say about 140 claims have been made since an Exxon Mobil pipeline ruptured and spewed thousands of barrels of oil in central Arkansas last week. The Pegasus pipeline ruptured last Friday in a neighborhood in Mayflower, about 25 miles northwest of Little Rock. Oil spilled onto lawns and roadways and approached nearby Lake Conway. No one was injured, but authorities evacuated more than 20 homes in the area. Crews have recovered about 19,000 barrels of oil and water since the pipeline ruptured. And that's this stuff is worse. It's harder to clean up because they really don't have a good way to clean it up. The way that this type of oil works is it's if I remember correctly, this is the tar sands type oil, and this stuff is different than regular like crude. And it's harder to clean up when it gets into the ground, or if it gets into the water, because it doesn't float, it sinks to the bottom. You think that maybe we would learn. This stuff looked like crude, though, so I don't know. I mean, it could be oil they pulled out of the tar sands. I don't know. It looked like black, but to me, it looked like black crude that you would see, coming out of a, like a dirty motor. It was really dark, so who knows? Maybe it is the tar sands oil, but this will, or that type of oil, this will definitely put a kink in that huge tar sands pipeline thing that they want to put in, right? If anybody's paying attention. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe that's why the media is not telling you about it. Oh, now it makes sense. Because this would be really bad PR, wouldn't it? This would be really, really bad for a lot of people. And they can't have that. So screw you, screw your health, screw the people, right? You should see the videos of this. It's unbelievable. There's literally black crude. I don't want to say crude because, again, I don't know if it's crude or if it's that type of tar sands type oil or whatnot, but it's black oil just pouring out. There's this one shot where you could find it on YouTube. The residents of the area took them, and you see that literally they're parked right in front of this one house, and in between the two houses is this, and coming down, it looks like, I think it's either the side of the one house or like by the driveway area. It's just this river of oil, and the street is thick. I mean, you could literally float things on top of it. It's so thick, and there's current. It's deep enough that you can literally see current flowing down the street. But pay that no mind. Dancing with the Stars is on, and if you don't go watch Dancing with the Stars, you know what? The terrorists win. Go back to shopping. Go back to buying stuff. Okay? If you pay attention to the bad stuff, if you look at this stuff, you're just a conspiracy theorist, and you must be afraid. This stuff's not. Don't worry. The government will take care. We promise. We're here to help you. We love you. Right? I've heard that before. I've heard that plenty of times. I'm going to play an audio clip. I know a lot of people don't like RT, but and I'm not their biggest cheerleader myself, but I do have a tendency once in a while to use clips from them if it's good. Sometimes I tear apart things they say, but in this instance, they're one of the only news agencies that I found that did an actually in-depth report on this as much as they did, and of course, the clip you're going to hear aired on the Russian version. I don't know if it aired on the American version, RT America, but of course, it would take another country to report on things like this. And I'm not giving them credit either. I know they're a state-run agency and blah, 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 blah. But again, they're the only ones right now that got into depth as much as they did on what's going on. So I want to let you guys hear just how bad this is. And you'll see why, maybe why, just a little bit why I'm a little PO'd about this, and I'm sure plenty of other people are.
The U.S. Federal Aviation Administration has imposed an indefinite no-fly zone over an area in Arkansas recently affected by an oil spill. It sparked concern that the Exxon Mobil Oil Company may be trying to keep the TV cameras away from the scene. RT's Marina Portnaya has more for us now, live in the States. Marina, Why would a no-fly zone be imposed over an oil spill? It's not exactly a war zone, is it?
It's not a war zone whatsoever, but the Federal Aviation Administration, they say that the indefinite no-fly zone, which they're calling the temporary flight restrictions, was put in place as a hazard warning. Officials say this is so emergency support are able to respond to the disaster immediately. Now, the FAA's online posting noted that only relief aircraft operated under the direction of Mr. Tom Suroff are permitted in the area. Now, according to his LinkedIn profile, Mr. Suroff lists himself as an aviation advisor for Exxon Mobil. He is not an emergency expert or a safety official. This, of course, has caused many critics to speculate that the real reason behind this indefinite no-fly zone is to minimize news coverage that can further damage the reputation of Exxon Mobil. Now, on April 1st, the first day that...
I have to pause it right there. I also say that the other reason why you would have this big push to keep this quiet, not just Exxon Mobil, but that whole big Keystone pipeline that they're trying to run right through here, through the country, and it's going to end up going over the country's it's one of the biggest aquifers, I think, in North America, but I know it's the biggest one, I believe, in the country here. It's a huge freshwater aquifer. But hey, don't worry, we don't have oil leaks. Pfft, our safety records are impeccable. Yeah, okay.
This indefinite no-fly zone was put in place. An aerial video surfaced online revealing the extent of the horrific damage of this oil spill. According to ExxonMobil's press release, the spill has totaled upwards of 10,000 barrels of crude oil as of Monday. The company has deployed 15 vacuum trucks, 33 storage tanks, and 120 workers, at least, to the cleanup site.
Doesn't that sound like something that should be getting a little more coverage, perhaps on CNN, MSNBC, PBS, NBC, ABC, Fox News, and the rest of them? Don't you think? I mean, they just started talking about it, I think, today. I recently noticed that there's actually other people other than those out there in the non-mainstream. But for real, why is nobody talking about this? Why? Don't you think that you just heard what they have out there right now on scene? Don't you think that's a large amount of equipment and men? But hey, don't pay any attention. It's somebody knocked over a 1-quart bottle of oil. We're going to get some diapers out and clean it right up. Don't worry about it.
We also know that at least 22 homes have been evacuated so far, leaving dozens of residents seeking shelter elsewhere.
And ExxonMobil, they're saying they're already paying out compensation. So who's getting this money?
Well, that's what ExxonMobil says, but RT recently spoke with a Mayflower resident, Chris Harrell. Now, Mr. Harrell told us that he has not received any indication of any kind of compensation or settlement offers from ExxonMobil. Mr. Harrell said that on Sunday, when he went home briefly for Easter here in the States, he received a letter on his front door from ExxonMobil that apologized, quote, apologized for the inconvenience. Mr. Harrell said that those that have been evacuated are being provided the hotel rooms paid for by ExxonMobil. But at a community meeting that took place over the weekend with some Exxon officials, Mr. Harrell says that very few answers were given, and all those in attendance were very frustrated, very angry. ExxonMobil has not indicated how long cleanup will take. Mr. Harrell told RT that the major concern for many people in the neighborhood is the longer-term impact from the spill, both environmentally and financially. What will this circumstance do to property values in that area? Most residents, according to Mr. Harrell, who we spoke with, didn't even know that ExxonMobil's pipeline ran through that streets. And the pipeline we're specifically referring to can carry more than 90,000 barrels of Canadian heavy crude oil per day from Illinois to Texas. So that is something that most residents in the community were not even aware.
Okay, well, that answered my question, by the way. I wasn't sure if it was the tar sands type oil or if it was indeed just heavy crude. So, okay, it is heavy crude. Thank you, RT.
Aware of that pipeline was going through their neighborhood.
Just finally, there have been...
Now, I got to say, this guy was remiss in his duties because he didn't follow up. I would have been like, wait, hold on. They didn't know that this huge pipeline was running through their community? I don't know, I'm sure he let it go because of time and yada, 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 but whatever. He should have asked that question. I mean, doesn't anybody find that odd that this rather large community, for the area, house-wise, and it looks like it's a newer one, would not know, anybody in that area would not know that there's a huge pipeline running right through the area and that this could happen to them? Don't you find that a little odd? I mean, after all, who would have the power or the need to hide stuff like that? I don't get it. Oh, wait a minute. I kind of get it now.
Bigger oil spills than this in the past. What's the usual reaction from officials and the companies involved?
Well, look, the bigger the oil spill, the bigger the news coverage. And, of course, this oil spill taking place in Arkansas is not as big as the one that took place in the Gulf of Mexico a few years back. But the concern for many people, especially residents that are directly affected by this oil spill, is that it's not going to receive the coverage that it needs to receive to find those responsible for this oil spill accountable. This is still a very disastrous oil spill that's going to harm the community, harm the environment, harm, as Mr. Harrell told RT, property values. And if the media is not given access to cover this oil spill, to cover the extent and the damage and the circumstances of it, then there may be less accountability. That is the major concern. And at the end of the day, those that are affected by this, and I think citizens all throughout the United States, want to know why it took place, what could have prevented it, and if someone's responsible for this, they should be held accountable.
Live in New York, RT's Marina Portnap.
Yeah, I would say somebody should be held accountable for it, but they won't be. Nice big slick of crude coming down your street. Can you imagine that? You're in a community, it looks like it's in the woods. It's in Arkansas, right? So it's just, and it's not like backwoods. I said they're newer houses. So imagine that you're in your newer house, like this newer built community, and you're like, we have this lovely home. We don't own much, but this is great. I love it. And all of a sudden, what the hell is that? Your neighbor comes surfing by your house on a 3-foot wave of crude. What's up, dude? Cowabunga! What the hell's going on? And none of them knew. None of them knew. Wow. That's the kind of stuff that the real estate company has to, like, if the real estate agent knows about that, they have to disclose. So it makes one wonder if it was even kept from the real estate people. That way, it doesn't put them in a position where they feel that they have to compromise themselves. Now, again, who would have the power to block it up that high? I mean, obviously, you're going up to some higher level where there's a portion of the community that has no clue that there's a huge oil pipeline coming through. Now, who wouldn't benefit from people knowing about it? Exxon? The powers that shouldn't be, that are involved with Exxon, have a financial stake in it. The people that want to push this other huge tar sands pipeline that could leak over top of this huge freshwater aquifer. Pay no attention to that, ladies and gentlemen. Be afraid of scary North Korea nuking Austin, Texas. Okay, sure. We'll be right back. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. Moving on, I want to get into the third topic for this evening, and that is debunking the quote-unquote conspiracy debunkers. Apparently, I guess after Current TV was purchased by Al Jazeera, they've put some money into their new sets, and they have I guess a couple new shows. And there's this newer one. Although I don't watch TV anyway. I don't have TV, and I don't ever. The only current videos I ever see is if someone like Mike over at moxnews.com cuts them up and throws them on. Otherwise, I just won't see them. Throws them on YouTube. So he threw a piece up yesterday, and he titled it, "What's your favorite American conspiracy?" That's the question that the host of the show asks. And right off the bat, they open the segment up with joking around and laughing. And when he goes to his panel, you'll hear his panel is all comedians. So they're talking about and I don't know if this guy's show is supposed to be serious or not. Again, his show is called Viewpoint, so I don't know if it's supposed to be a retarded viewpoint or what his viewpoint, where he's coming from. I don't, know the premise of his show. I didn't hear his first little broadcast where he introduces himself. His debut. So I don't really know who the dude is either, but. He comes on and he starts talking and he's bashing, conspiracy theorists. And again, he has a panel of comedians. So right off the bat, they're staging the argument. They're framing it, okay? If this was serious, why wouldn't he have, if he really wanted to have a serious debate about this or a conversation about it, why wouldn't he have serious researchers on there? Why wouldn't he have someone like Webster Tarpley on there, right? At least. Or anybody else. That's, a well-known, well-researched individual. Why wouldn't you have a panel of them on there? Even if it was somebody, like have Tarpley and like some guy that's completely skeptical and says no way, and then one other person, whoever you want, like a middle-of-the-road type person. But no, you have a bunch of comedians on to sit and point fingers and laugh and make fun of and go ha 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 ha. So I'm gonna start into this, and then we'll get into it next segment too. But I'm gonna debunk this. I'm gonna even use quotes to debunk this. So here we go.
I asked what your favorite American conspiracy theory is. And on Facebook, Sandra Fournier wrote, "The UN is coming to take your guns." Come on, Sandra, that is a crazy fringe conspiracy perpetuated only by a few disturbed gun nuts and most of the Republican Party leadership. And they're only doing it because their brains have been so affected by chemtrails after our government staged 9/11. If you have a comment for the show, tweet us at ViewpointCTV or John Fugel.
You see how he just frame that argument? Before he even goes to the panel, his opening is a complete straw man argument so that he can turn around at the end of the argument and attack said straw man argument and defeat it in front of the camera. And you hear his little giggling hens sitting on the side. Disgusting. This is what's called propaganda. I'm going to debunk you, sir.
Or use the hashtag Viewpoint, or just post it on our Facebook page, because we got one. Now, if you're one of those folks who looks around and says, boy, everybody in this country is crazy, I have some good news for you. You may be right. According to a new poll from Public Policy Polling, 28% of registered voters in America believe the secretive power elite with a globalist agenda is conspiring to rule the world through an authoritarian world government. That's right, more than 1 in 4 people buy into the New World Order conspiracy, wherein a group of powerful individuals are conspiring to achieve world domination. Not crazy enough for you? How about this one?
And he laughs. Now, you see how he doesn't offer any type of evidence to his claim. He doesn't say, this is why I say it's crazy, because of blah, 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 blah. Example A, B, or C. Nope. Offers you no examples of any real information. Again, frames a straw man, attacks it, moves on, gives no real information on the subject. They buy into this conspiracy of a one world government, a new world order. You know what? When we get back from break, I'm going to have to debunk you, homeboy. I'm going to have to take you out to the woodshed, okay? And you know what I'm going to use to debunk you and take you to the woodshed? I'm going to use quotes from very famous people from history. Some alive, some dead. I'll let the listeners decide who's more accurate. You, with your logical fallacy after logical fallacy after logical fallacy, pathetic non-argument, or mine filled with facts. We'll be right back. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. There is no retreat. There is no surrender. It's time to take these scumbags on head on. And that's what I'm going to do with this little lackey right here. First, I'm going to let you hear his stupid straw man argument again. And then I'm going to totally destroy it.
To a new poll from Public Policy Polling, 28% of registered voters in America believe the secretive power elite with a globalist agenda is conspiring to rule the world through an authoritarian world government. That's right, more than 1 in 4 people buy into the New World Order conspiracy, wherein a group of powerful individuals are conspiring to achieve world domination. Not crazy enough?
Okay. See how he makes fun of it, builds it up like it's crazy, and moves on? Again, offering no evidence to refute any of the crazy conspiracy theories, right? So, let me educate you, sir, and just maybe educate the listeners in case they don't know this. I'm going to read you some quotes. That's what I'm going to do, is read you actual quotes from real living people who are either a part of this or connected to this. And let's see what the listeners have to think and say. I'll let them decide. I'm going to put it out there, and then I'll let them make up their own minds. They can, go wherever after the show and think about it and think on it and do their own research, which, ladies and gentlemen, I urge you to do. Be an autodidact. That's how I learned everything I know. I don't know this stuff because someone sat me down and said, Popeye, I'm going to teach you everything I know. Far from it. Far from it. So let me read you some quotes. First, from David Rockefeller. You can go get these. This is right from his memoirs. You can go read his book. And I quote, "For more than a century, ideological extremists at either end of the political spectrum have seized upon well-publicized incidents, such as my encounter with Castro, to attack the Rockefeller family for the inordinate influence they claim we wield over American political and economic institutions. Some even believe we are part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States, characterizing my family and me as, quote, internationalists, end quote, and of conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure. One world, if you will. If that's the charge, I stand guilty, and I am proud of it. David Rockefeller." Or how about this, sir? Quote, "The supranational sovereignty of an intellectual elite and world bankers is surely preferable to the national autodetermination practiced in past centuries." End quote. David Rockefeller. How about this little quote? "We are grateful to the Washington Post, the New York Times, Time Magazine, and other great publications whose directors have attended our meetings and have respected their promises of discretion for almost 40 years. It would have been impossible for us to develop our plan for the world if we had been subjected to the lights of publicity during those years. But the world is more sophisticated and prepared to march towards a world government. The supranational sovereignty of an intellectual elite and world bankers is surely preferable to the national auto-determination practiced in past centuries." There's the quote in its entirety. Still think it's a crazy, kooky conspiracy by gun nuts? And by the way, the UN does want to take your guns. They've said it. Dianne Feinstein said it. Stop acting like these people don't want to take people's guns away. They do. They do. Let's not joke. Let's not laugh. Let's not point finger. See, that's that Pavlovian, that what is it called? Operant conditioning. That we're trained, like barking seals. One more for you. From the author of Tragedy and Hope, Professor Carol Quigley, who, by the way, Bill Clinton loved him and talked about him during his inauguration speech, okay? Praised him. He was his mentor. Quote, "The powers of financial capitalism had another far-reaching aim, nothing less than to create a world system of financial control in private hands, able to dominate the political system of each country and the economy of the world as a whole." Now, I read that slow like that on purpose. Now, I'll read the full quote again, but I wanted to emphasize that for an obvious reason. Here's the full quote. Quote, "The powers of financial capitalism had another far-reaching aim, nothing less than to create a world system of financial control in private hands, able to dominate the political system of each country and the economy of the world as a whole. This system was to be controlled in a feudalist fashion by the central banks of the world, acting in concert by secret agreements arrived at in frequent private meetings and conferences. The apex of the system was the Bank for International Settlements in Basel, Switzerland, a private bank owned and controlled by the world's central banks, which were themselves private corporations. The growth of financial capitalism made possible a centralization of world economic control and use of this power for the direct benefit of financiers and the indirect injury of all other economic groups. Tragedy and Hope, A History of the World in Our Time, 1966, Professor Carol Quigley of Georgetown University. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, do I need to go on and on and on? Now, what goal would they have? Well, I mean, what goal would they? What's the end goal with this crazy world government? I guess if they are preparing for a world government, what's the goal? Well, let's see what Ted Turner, 1996, had to say. Quote: a total world population of 250 to 300 million people, a 95% decline from present levels would be ideal. End quote. And by the way, Luke Rudkowski confronted him about this, and he said, "Oh, I know you want to kill like 80% of the world's population. You're a scumbag, blah, 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 blah." And it's on video. You can see this. It's on We Are Change's YouTube channel. He turns around, looks Luke square in the face, very serious, not all ho-ho-ho, looks right at the camera, and he says to him, "It's not 80%, it's 90%, and turns around and walks away. Wow. What an arrogant turd. But no, they don't want to create a world government. They don't want to kill people off. And you're a crazy conspiracy theorist if you actually go read the quotes that these people say. But I don't want to stay on this one little quote-unquote conspiracy too much, because there's a few others that they get into before they start to slide into idiocy. They even mention Iraq, but then they slide into nonsensical nonsense. This whole piece is an example of a frame-up. They build the straw man. They laugh. They point fingers. They ha 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 ha. This isn't done because they respect you and they think that you're smart and they have to fool you. They think you're dumb. They think you're so stupid that this is what you'll go to for your news, because the newscaster should be sitting there laughing and making jokes and pointing fingers and having a panel of washed-up comedians on the broadcast.
For you? How about this one? According to this same poll, 13% of voters believe that President Obama is the Antichrist. Not that he might be, he is. A belief that's also held by 5% of those who actually voted for him. Sure, other countries beat us in education and healthcare and income inequality, but when it comes to conspiracy theory, we're number one. And for more fun with...
Now, you see what he did? He lumped in the New World Order, quote unquote, a one world government, right? He lumps that in with that people that think that Obama is the Antichrist. So automatically, if you think that there's a one world government being formulated, which there is, then automatically you must be some crazy putz that thinks Obama's the Antichrist. And you know what? Maybe he is the Antichrist. If there is an Antichrist, maybe Obama is. Who knows? I don't. Okay? All I know is he's trying to frame this argument, and he's trying to lump a bunch of stuff together to make everything sound crazy. This is how they play the game, ladies and gentlemen. It's because, guess what? They don't have a real argument. Not one fact has been given by this person. I'll be nice about it. Not one fact. I read you a whole bunch of quotes. I told you where they came from, the individuals who said them. And it's not like it's the milkman down the street, right? People that are very connected to this very one world government thing. And yet, this guy still jokes and laughs. And now he's going to bring on his panel of comedians.
Polling, I'm pleased to be joined once again by an all-star panel of brilliant, funny Americans, writer, comedian, and TV's Frank. You're Frank Conniff, writer, comedian, and founder of the nationwide animal rescue organization Tales of Joy, the luminous Elaine Boozler, and comedian and author of Liz Free or Die, People of Earth. It's the one and only Liz Winstead. Welcome back. This is so much fun to have you here. So let's start with this poll. What do you guys make of conspiracy theory? 20% of Republicans who voted for Romney think Obama is the Antichrist.
And by the way, this guy has obviously been taught NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, because he does. Sean Hannity's very good at this. If you watch him when he does his show, he moves his hands a lot. When he says certain words, he has his hand in a certain position, and then he'll change his hand, and he does certain motions. It's done on purpose. It's called NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. Go look it up. This guy's doing it. Most of these broadcasters are taught it somewhat because that's what they do. They're programming you.
15% think secret mind-controlling technology has added to TV broadcast signals. 4% believe lizard people.
Now you see that's a proven fact that they did actually, at least on the books, start to research it. And we know anybody that researches this knows that through the flicker rate and everything else, there are subliminal messages put into television. They actually do commercials with subliminals in them. There's been ads, political ads, where people got caught putting subliminals in because somebody recorded it and slowed it down. And they went through it for like frame by frame or even slower, however however slow you can get down into it and look at it. They did, and they found certain things. I mean, it happens all the time. Just go on YouTube. I know. Those videos, every single one of them, there could be 300,000 of them, and all of them will be faked by the same guy in his mom's basement. And then they go from mind control technology and the attack on it, right? Again, no facts, no nothing. 10%, this percent believes this percent believes that. And they just keep rattling off quote-unquote conspiracies. And then they say, oh, the lizard people. They love to take the reptilian theory and throw that in there because it seems so crazy. So they're always attacking that, no matter what you see. You ever notice that? And then you'll get people going, well, that friggin' David Icke. Guys, I have news for you. Icke's not the one that came up with that. He might have put it in the book and brought it to people's attention in that manner, but these theories of these lizard creatures and stuff coming from the sky or wherever, or the dimensions, this goes back thousands and thousands of years in many different cultures. So we need to stop blaming one person for the info, even if we don't like it. It might not be accurate, but I mean, this is what these people talked about. So we can't just blow it off. Anyway, he doesn't even tell you that. He doesn't tell you ancient cultures talked about that. He just says, oh, these crazy, the lizard people.
Lizards disguised as people are trying to take over the world. Now, look, lizards disguised as people is ridiculous. I should point out there is at least one turtle in office disguised as a person. Can we see that? There you go. I give you Yertle. Liz Winstead, are you surprised that this many Americans are this bat guano crazy?
Here's what I think is so hilarious, is that they are so convinced that liberals are taking everything and everybody's taking something from them, and yet they can't find their way off the couch to do anything. And so it's like, honestly, everyone's motivated but you. If I looked at my calendar and thought, well, I'm trying to take the guns away at Tuesdays, I'm trying to take this right away from you. I'm trying to close all the churches
so
down.
Busy. You're
so busy taking and
learning
closing
Spanish, so there's no English.
That's right. Get off. If they would just get off.
You see how that's a straw man? The comedian comes on and she acts like they're blaming liberals. Oh, it's all the liberals. She even brings up WND, whatever that site is. They actually have some decent stuff. I don't agree with all the stuff that they report on or they talk about, but sometimes they actually do release really good articles. But nope, can't have that. So they get attacked because they're not current or CNN or whatever. It's all straw man. This whole thing. I'll play a little bit more in the final segment and tear it up, and then that's it, because I'm not even going to waste my time with it any further. My whole point of bringing this on was to show you how they, as an example, how they build a straw man argument and then rip it apart in front of you so that now you'll be able to see through the garbage too. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back, and I want to just play a little bit more of this audio and finish tearing it up, and that's it, because these people have already shown their true colors. And once you understand how this all works, you can see through it, it's easily torn to shreds.
The couch.
Getting married 3 times.
Yes, good
John,
God.
you're a biblical scholar. Didn't it say, wasn't the prophecy that the Antichrist would be a moderate, affable, kind of Republican guy?
Well, we're getting to that in the F-bomb. It's all about the Obama's Antichrist meme. And that's, by the way, that's been around for a long time. But there were a few interesting opinions about the Bush administration revealed in this poll. It didn't get a lot of press.
That they're criminals?
Well, 44% of voters say...
conspiracies.
44%, check it out, say they were intentionally misled by the Bush administration about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Now, clearly most people know they were wrong about WMDs, okay? But the same people use the same bad intelligence excuse. Are you surprised by that number? And the bad intelligence thing. Okay, so bad intelligence is okay when it leads to 4,000 soldiers dead in Iraq, but when 4 die in Benghazi and the CIA gets it wrong about a video, bad intelligence has got to be a cover-up?
But it wasn't bad intelligence. They sent Colin Powell to the UN with a yellow cake, and he didn't even know he was being used that day.
Mm-hmm.
It's not bad
Lies, 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 lies. I'm puking all over myself because of your lies.
I don't like how people let Colin Powell off the hook, you know, that he went and well,
at least somebody said it.
He couldn't have known better. He is just as responsible, I think, as anyone in the Bush administration.
It's not bad intelligence, it's manipulation.
Exactly.
I would settle for any intelligence right now.
But I would say, to the Colin Powell point, Frontline did an amazing piece, and Colin Powell specifically made George Tenet?
Yeah.
Sit behind him.
Yes.
During the entire UN
presentation.
So that every time the camera was on him, George Tenet would be behind
someone
him.
to share the heat with?
Well, because George Tenet was the one who said, slam dunk, this is it. You know, we talk about conspiracy theories. We also have a Congress, let's not forget, that said that pizza's a vegetable. And so the conspiracy theories are one thing. The reality of stuff, I mean, how many people, I would like to know, believe Todd Aiken's point that, you know, there's legitimate rape and that...
You see how they totally transformed and twisted this whole thing. You see how they left the original. The whole intention was to attack people, and then as soon as anybody that was world government, blah blah blah, Obama this, Obama that. Oh, he's an antichrist. Oh, you're crazy. Reptilian people, mind control. Ha 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 ha. Did Bush lie about the Iraq War? Dun dun dun! He's a war criminal. What a douche. He should be locked up. Wow. Holy crap. Talk about flip-flopping. 0 to 60 in about a second and a half. Wow. So is that really legitimate? I mean, anybody that thinks anything bad of the current administration is a crazy conspiracy theorist. If you believe in world government, blah, 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 and you're a crazy conspiracy theorist. But if you dislike Bush because of the Iraq War, you're okay. Well, that's not conspiracy, that's fact. There's a difference. Well, let me again give you the definition of conspiracy. Conspiracy is two or more people getting together to do something bad. So if they lied purposely, bad intelligence, right. Yeah, okay. If they lied, which they did, right, there was more than two of them who sat down in a room and said, hey, George, yeah, Dick, yeah. By definition, just George and Dick by themselves are two, right? So two or more. So, hey, George, yeah, Dick, we're going to lie about why we're going to go into Iraq. We're going to say it was 9/11 and freedom and blah, 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 blah. We'll change the reasons 15 or 20 times. Weapons of mass destruction. Whoa, scary. Let's lie and do it. Yes, that's a good idea, Dick. Yay! Guess what? That's a conspiracy. They're plotting to do something. By the definition of the word. You see, attacking the term conspiracy theory or conspiracy theorist dates back to the 60s. I've said this before. And not the term existed before then, but the use of it as a pejorative and as a label, the way they use it now, dates back to the Kennedy assassinations when they first started using it, to the people that investigated the assassination. Because by definition, if it was more than just Oswald being the quote-unquote lone gunman, right, which is the official story, you'd have a conspiracy. So if you theorize that it was more than Oswald, you were a conspiracy theorist. Now you get it? All right, ladies and gentlemen. 2 hours just flew right by. It's cool. I got 5 days a week now, so I got all the time in the world with you. Don't buy into the fear porn, ladies and gentlemen. Understand, educate yourself. Be an autodidact. Learn the trivium. Be Neo. You can see what the Matrix is and see through this garbage.
This is Sparta!
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're out of time. We're out of here.